Our good friend Jerry Murphy returns today to give us an update on some of his field work that he's been doing looking at ancient history. We'll see in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope you said great. Sorry for the intro beginning. I don't know if I just didn't push the stupid button or if it jammed up or something. I've been having one of those days with my computer for like a month now, so I don't know what's bothering it or whatever. It's been Murphy's Law every time. Jared Murphy's on tonight. Yeah, it's been Murphy's Law every time I've even gotten near my computer. I think it hates me this month. Anyway, welcome. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. Let me adjust my head here. And I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means we can get to you no matter where you're at. It may take us a while. California is a big state, but we will get to you. I swear. Had a great thing this afternoon on the phone. We helped a client in Pennsylvania today over the phone, and it turned out really great. And hopefully, our help, will aid her in what's going on with her home. And yeah, I'm always available, guys. Always. Anyhow, Jared's going to be about 5 or 10 minutes late, so we can sit here and jaw a little bit. Just jaw. Upcoming for California Haunts Radio. Got excitement coming. We're going to be at Disneyland. I'm going to go out live. I've set it up, you guys. YouTube Live for everybody that comes to watch the show live here, because I know a lot of you don't have TikTok accounts. So I'm going to be going out YouTube Live for those shows. Okay, and you'll know ahead of time when we're going to do it. I'm going to be there 4 days, so I'm going to have 2 days over at DCA campus, and then I'm going to have 2 days at the Disneyland park itself. So you guys will get to join us, and I'll even show you the hotel and stuff, because we're going to be staying at the Grand Californian. So it's going to be exciting stuff. I'm going to be doing that. I'm also going to be doing stuff on YouTube as well, so I'm going to be splitting the time between y'all. So I've been going through real fast rehearsals here with my camera, with my cell phone and my mics and all this other stuff that I have to do, because YouTube's a totally different animal. Broadcasting with YouTube. So I've had, instead of just going straight out my cell phone or doing it like this, obviously I can't carry this mic around with me. I've been using a portable mic in my phone, and we've got extra power for the phone, so it won't die. And I've got a small little a different kind of selfie light for those things, especially if I'm out at night at Disneyland, that kind of thing. But I'm going to take you on the rides with me. So we're gonna have fun. We're going to the happiest place on earth. We're going to have some fun those 4 days. Anyway, tonight my guest is Jared Murphy. He's been here before. He is the gentleman who believes that aliens did not aid in building the pyramids or anything, that it was us that did it. And so he's been out doing some more explorations and stuff. And so he's coming on in a few minutes to update us on those explorations that he's been doing. So let me get my spiel about the pages. If you are listening tonight and you like what you hear, please be sure to follow me either on Facebook, because you can follow my page at Facebook, or California Haunts Ghostly Events on Facebook. You can follow me over there. And be sure to hit the button for the like or whatever, so we can get those, the more likes, the merrier. So just let me know you like me, right? You really like me. All right. Now over on YouTube, same thing. Essentially, I believe, and people are going to correct me if I'm pointing in the wrong direction. I'm trying to hit it right there. It should be that little ghost with the Sherlock Holmes hat on and the magnifying glass in its hand, and that's our mascot. And if you click on that, a red button will come up to say subscribe. And if you haven't done that already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are over 490 videos over there. Not all paranormal. They vary in topic. So I think you'll find something that you like. There's a little something for everybody. Hello, Pamela. You can also follow me on Instagram, and I am Ghosty Gal. Over on Instagram, it's all lowercase. And you can follow us on TikTok. We are California Haunts on TikTok, and that's all lowercase. And if you like Twitter, which Twitter is an interesting place right now, to say the least. If you're into Twitter, then we're over at Twitter, and we are under Cal Haunts on Twitter. So I think I covered all the places. Yeah. I get confused because there's so many of them, right? God, there's so many. And if you're interested in our YouTube site and you haven't been there yet, that's youtube.com/ampersand, which is the @ California Haunts Radio. So you can find us that way as well. Anyhow, Since we're killing some time. Killing time. Yeah. Since we're killing some time. Been an interesting week all the way around. We lost Lisa Marie Presley this week. We lost quite a few, quite a few that we've lost, and it's going to be interesting to see if anybody tries to attempt to contact them from beyond. I won't do that stuff, but there's always people out there, paranormal people, paranormal investigators, so-called paranormal, that will do that right away with movie stars and stuff. So it should be interesting to see if anything comes of that. Um, anyhow, I want to thank you all again. You guys have been backing us 3 years, 3 years. We're going on. This is year number 3 that you guys have come here every night without fail. My diehards, every night without fail. And I thank you so much for this. I thank you. And for the RSS feed, folks that keep listening to us, thank you. Thank you so much. I just so appreciate it. And for anybody new coming in, thank you. I really appreciate y'all coming in, right? Tonight we're going to talk about something. Tonight we're going to be talking about what Jared calls not aliens. I tend to believe that I've got everybody has their own beliefs about this stuff, and I tend to believe that aliens did in fact help build the pyramids, because I just can't fathom in my little pea brain how those big stones got up there, right? I just don't know. I mean, I could see, I can understand the whole slave thing when they had the slaves out and they were hauling those things up. I mean, but that would have taken hundreds of years to do. I mean, you're just not going to build these things overnight, right? I mean, like I said, my little brain, the little hamster in my brain, just goes round, round, and round and round. Hi, Becky, how you doing? The little hamster in my brain just goes round and round and round and round when I think about this stuff, because I just don't fathom it not, ancient society not having help for that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? So it boggles my mind with Jared, with what Jared believes. But I'm always open minded. I mean, that's what I do. It's my job to be open minded with this show, and so that's what I do. And a lot of what he says, okay, a lot of what he says makes a lot of sense too. So I'm just checking emails, make sure. And so, I can't argue with it, right? I mean, we would have to take a time machine, literally, to go back to the ancient times to see how they did stuff, how they built Stonehenge, how they lifted those big stones. So, I mean, that's the only way we're going to be able to tell for sure. I mean, it's all speculation, right? It's like ghost hunting. It's like ghost hunting, right? There's no experts in the paranormal field. We're all guessing, just like anybody else. If anybody says they're an expert, they're an idiot. Okay, because there's no experts in this field. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the anthropologists and archaeologists aren't experts. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's speculation. I mean, how many times, over our lifespans have we had a fact thrown at us that we take for granted, and then 20, 30, 15, 20 years later, the fact has changed, right? And then the next thing you know, here's a new theory that comes out. That's because we're just, speculating based on the current evidence that's in front of us. That's what we do. Just like eggs. Eggs are bad. Eggs are good. Eggs are bad. The whole cholesterol thing everybody went through. Cholesterol is bad. Cholesterol is good. Cholesterol won't hurt you. Blah blah blah. And we all went through that. And we've all been through it. Where they'll say something's bad and then it turns out not to be bad, and then maybe 10 years later it's bad again, right? So I mean, it's all based on whatever evidence we have in front of us at that time. Whatever conjecture we can make, what theory we can make at that time. And that's what I think. History is like that too. It's ever changing because they're finding out. The more the technology comes out, the more they're gonna, the more the technology advances, the more they're gonna find out about the stuff that we thought was so different, right? Okay. Tell me if you agree. You guys are in the chat room. Tell me if you agree with that. I mean, it might be one of my blown out things that I think about when I have my very deep thoughts at night. Right? I'm sitting here doing nothing, and I have these deep thoughts. But that's how I feel, and that's why. Who am I to say that his theories are wrong and mine are right, or vice versa? Who's he to say my theories are wrong and his are right? You can't do that because it's all theory. That's what it's a theory. It's conjecture. Conjecture. I got the word right. Big words. Don't like big words. All right. So I mean, yeah, I'm open to everybody. I'm open to everything. I'm open. I'm open to the flat Earth guys. I'm open. Let's see. I don't. Let's see. I gotta reach it. I gotta lean forward, guys. I'm blind. Right. Pamela's right. She doesn't really know what to believe. I agree with that because things it changes so rapidly. It's like your neck's on a swivel. You know, you're like, whoa, I thought that was like that. Then it's over here, something different completely. So yeah, so it's hard. You know, so you have to take what you have. I think you can take the what you have right in front of you at that time and then go with it, and then just keep an open mind that it could change. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. That's how I see things. Just like with ghost hunting. You know, with all the technology we have ghost hunting, you know, we still don't have any solid. There's not. I mean, there's evidence, but there's no solid evidence. None. Even though there is evidence, we get excited over it. Oh, there's an apparition. Okay, there's an apparition. But have we talked to this apparition, or have we talked to somebody else that's going to tell us, what's going on with this apparition? We don't know. We don't know. Why is this apparition here? All we can do is have thoughts about that, and maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. When we're truly going to know is when it's our time to go. That's when we're going to find out. That's how it boils down, right? I mean, that's the only way we're going to know. I'm just looking at this. Okay. Um, remember, I'm going to, as soon as Jared comes on, I'm going to enlarge the chat so I can see the chat. But right now, I'm just chatting away here. Just chatting away. Um, let's get back to Disney a little bit here for my little trip to Disney. I'm handicapped, and I fully admit I'm handicapped. So you're going to get a different view too when you're there. When I'm there is because I'm going to be on a scooter. So it's going to be interesting for those of you out there that might have disabilities for this trip because you'll get to see what happens when you have a disability at Disney. Especially if you're on a motorized scooter. It's my first time. The last time I went, I had a disability pass, but I was still walking. But this time, there's no way. my legs are shot. So, I mean, I can stand up and walk short distances, but beyond that, not going to happen. So, I'm on a motorized scooter this trip. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I'm going to have a halter on, which will allow me to drive hands free and stuff. So, you guys will get a choice when I'm there because I can either put a headset on for the phone, have the phone up on this headset, or it'll be, right on my chest. Which means, depending how tall I am in the chair, you might get a view of people's butts as I'm driving. So that'll be up to you. You can either go on the head and see their back, or get a view of their butts. And I'll also wear the halter on the ride. And then for everybody on TikTok, over the weekend I discovered the whole picture-in-picture thing that they offer. I didn't know my cell phone did this. So when I'm on the rides, like the roller coasters, like say the Matterhorn, right? I can have a camera pointing forward, and I can have a camera, and then the other camera pointing back at my face. So you get the full experience. So that's kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to that too. And what I'll do with those is if I do any of those, I'll pull them off. Jared's here. I'll pull them off of TikTok, and I'll post them on YouTube for you guys to see. Right. All right. So Jared's here. So let's get the show on the road, as they say. See what's up with our good friend Jared Murphy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
I am so sorry for being late to everyone. I have made a big move. I'm now based out of Utah and
Wow.
am not currently able to just do a normal show. So I had to, I am using the good old fashioned government for a studio space, i.e., a meeting room at a library.
Well, that works.
It's been a big move. Lot to talk to you about. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started, buddy. See what's happening with you.
Well, so I didn't make December for Christmas, but why not start the new year with that ever pending book release, my new book in color, revision of It's Not Aliens, Worse It's Us, Discovering Our Lost History. That it looks like I have a meeting Friday
Mhm.
and a final kind of go over with the final copy on the following week. So it looks like this is the year that everyone will be able to get a new copy, hard copy or paperback. And it will be followed up with an audio version. So that's happening. That's one thing. And then there's even bigger news. If you're up
Yeah,
for bigger news.
I'm up for bigger news.
um, so then the other thing coming up is I have the opportunity to go look for Terra Preta on a 7,000 plus acre parcel of essentially unexplored uh, Belizean, right in the heart of Mayan country land that may or may not have some pyramids on it. And I will be down there doing field work and filming this April. And uh, folks, we have not discussed this, but of course, I was going to talk to you offline, but I will tell you right now. Of course, you are invited on air.
Right on. All right.
So, how's
How
that for
cool is
news?
that?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because the land is um, got pottery shards everywhere. There's one of the mini crystal skulls was found within 10 miles of this location.
Wow.
And this location is between many, many other pyramid sites. And as people know from the Guatemalan LiDAR scans, there are tens and tens of thousands of buildings. And what's interesting about Belize is that it's very close, from Belize, which, we think countries like Guatemala and Belize. So those are separate places, but not in the Mayan time frame. It would have been a very, very good point if you were shipping from the Atlantic or from the Pacific. If you wanted to
Mhm.
quickly move to either coast, this specific location where we are, there's a very, very, very good indicators that there could be many, many different interesting things for us to find, along with some electromagnetic testing. Some of the, there's been people that have been there. The owners have experienced like really weird reverberating sounds that are coming from the ground. And, are these ruins that, could date to 3,000 plus years? That's just the Mayans.
Mhm.
And if they built on top of these more ancient things that you and I have talked about over the
Mhm.
last, it could be there could be all sorts of energy anomalies, things that dip into what people would consider the paranormal. But the reality is that we could be, we're going to be droning, doing LiDAR work. There's a lot coming up.
That's incredible. How do
Yeah,
you how do you prepare for something like that?
that's a great question because Belize is also known for having bullet ants, which are called bullet ants because apparently it's for those unlucky enough to have been shot and bit by a bullet ant. That's how they got their name. Apparently, it's worse than being shot. It's the worst thing to be bit by well, except for anything that kills you. It's the worst thing to be bit by on the planet. And there's pit vipers, and there's also brown recluse spiders and black widows.
Wow. Nope, nope, thanks. Pass.
Now we're not going to just be now for everyone, just in case you wouldn't join for California Haunts. Sure brought some water. Um, I do think I'm going to need to. You're going to need to talk for me for a minute while you're going to
Okay.
need to mute me because I'm going to have a coughing fit.
Okay,
I'm going to
okay.
grab some water.
Okay, that works. Pit vipers. Going to a place like that, that's like Australia. As much as I would love to go to Australia, no, absolutely not. Don't like that stuff. Don't want to deal with it. Have no desire. Even though we have black widows and sometimes brown recluse here, no, no, and rattlesnakes. Right? I live in suburbia. There's no rattlesnakes where I'm at. Thank God. So I don't do. I don't do like. I don't do like venomous animals will. Nope. Not gonna happen. You know what I think about the ants? And I was gonna pull this joke, but since he's up, first thing I think about the ants is Indiana Jones, right? When Indiana, when I forget which was it, the Crystal Skulls, or whichever movie it was with Indiana Jones, when they set stuff down and the ants just come over everything, or whoever's standing there, and the ants are crawling all over them. That's what I think when he talks about like these bullet ants. Yikes! 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 No! 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 I think years ago I would have wanted to do what he does. Do anthropology or archaeology and go out to these places. But now, not my gig. Not my gig. Don't
Okay.
like wild things. I was just telling them that I was gonna make a joke after you mentioned the bullet ants. It reminds me of Indiana Jones, man. You know, with those red ants or whatever they were in the one movie. They set their hats down. They're all over them, and oh yikes! No,
Oh
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. Like when they were joking about the tarantulas on the, he had a couple on his back, and that poor little assistant at the beginning of the first one had like, 15 tarantulas, and we're not just randomly going into the jungle. I mean, the paths will be cleared. We'll have some, but one of the pyramids we're looking at. It's the reason we say that is there is, mountain ranges that are known, and then there's this anomalous hill, and by hill, it's about 1,000 feet.
Wow.
And there's no natural anomaly for that. It makes no sense other than that it is artificial. Could be anything, but we're going to go look. And what we're really looking for is as some listeners may have heard or not, I do field work, and the issue is to show up and test our theories. Some are electromagnetic, terra preta, this ancient engineered soil that's made by man. The Mayans and the Aztecs and assorted other South and Central American tribes and peoples and cultures, they adapted an ancient engineered soil that was already there that filtered heavy metals and filtered carbon dioxide and mysteriously self-replicates. It has electromagnetic properties, and it's all over the earth. It's not just Central and South America. And they've identified terra preta specifically that's in Brazil. They've identified it in Liberia, quite a bit of North Africa, South Africa, in the savannas where I was looking at the stone circles. So we're going to be testing for, what kind of voltage we're going to use our primitive 10-15% brain and our technology and where we're at now. And we're going to sort out some of those basic questions, do some LiDAR work and try to map out like 7,000 acres to give people an idea. When you're building a county, and I know right as I was having my fit, you were talking about where you live. In a county, there are sections, and sections are made up of acres. And for those of you who aren't into real estate, this is a lesson 101, is that in a section, there's 640 acres. So there's 7,000 acres. And you are well on your way to basically half of a county. And so there is some development, but to get to some of the things that we're going to be experimenting with, could be a 2-kilometer walk that we have to cut a path for. There's one, when you say, how do you prepare? It's like, well, do we have safe camping, or where do we stay? How do we off-road? Do we have any doctors or paramedics coming? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can prepare now that people didn't prepare then. Like, do we have Starlink? Starlink I wish was a sponsor, but do we need a satellite phone, or can we use a local cellular system? How far away are we from hospitals? There's a lot of logistics, field prep that doesn't just involve who's cooking for us. How do you get meals? How do you get water? There's a lot of places we could digress to, but the exciting stuff is, we got people coming. We have very interesting researchers coming. We're filming the whole thing. Of course, that'll be put into a documentary. And then I'm excited to find pyramids, but what we're looking for specifically, and I've talked about it on the show, is large megalithic blocks that were probably there prior to the Mayans. And what they did was they incorporated those megalithic blocks. And for all those listening, you can do it now or do it later. But if you Google Belize, there's lots of known ruins that you can go visit. And some have very small stackable blocks, and they clearly cut them dynastically. The last 3,000 years, they were like, oh, hey, we found this giant old building that's destroyed. Let's mimic it. Let's build something like it. And in some cases, which you can see in Mexico and other ruins like the Inca. They found these giant megalithic, very well cut precision blocks, and they couldn't copy that, but they would build and add rubble on top and try to make it look, you know, more complete. But it very much you could see, it's like it's basically like trying to stick mud on a cell phone. I mean, the technology difference of what they were doing is just so different. So we're looking for those big megalithic blocks. We're looking for, is this location, because there is Terra Preta there, optimistically, are we going to find megalithic platforms? Are we going to find large megalithic adapted Mayan, maybe they took a megalithic block and carved a face on it. But then we'll know that the foundational and structural things that I'm looking for, the seismic metamaterials, the things that would be remnants of a much older society that may be much more advanced, those remnants will be there. But what about all the paranormal stuff, the weird sounds, the haunted islands that are nearby that are right, we're right on the ocean. We have an underwater group coming that are going to be diving and looking for ruins underwater that maybe nobody's seen. So there's a lot going on.
How'd you get the funding for all this?
You do it yourself.
Wow.
And thanks for opening that up. Notaliens.com. That's my website. Now, I've been trying to get that thing revamped, but the members area has a lot of exclusive content. It's got some great photos of Egypt that no one else has. There's some good stuff on it, and it is being rebuilt. And from a donation standpoint and supporting the channel and this trip, pretty much 100% would go to it. So if you'd like to go to notaliens.com, and if you would like to get a membership, there's like a $7 monthly one. There's a $35, $39 one for the year. That would be greatly helpful. It would 100% go towards the project. So, but otherwise, we do have a couple people interested in sponsoring us. But everyone is coming down on their own dollar. That's how that's going.
Wow. I wanted to ask you about the LiDAR. What type of LiDAR system are you going to be using? Because I've seen the guys walk around with those big, those big poles sticking out with the light, with the LiDAR readers, and there's like three guys that are walking, that are walking around holding it steady.
Yeah, so there's the ground LiDAR, and then there's drone LiDAR. And the way it looks like we're leaning towards having both. So we'd likely have both.
That's incredible.
That would be a
God,
thing.
you guys need to film this. You need somebody to go with you. Not you or somebody.
So everyone listening, of course, look who just thought of that. Maybe I need someone who's really good at filming things and doing production, because maybe we should package this. And maybe we should be talking off air about that. What do you think?
This is true. Yeah, maybe we should talk. Yeah.
So you just nailed all the points that I haven't been able to catch up with you with in the last 3 weeks.
See? I'm good at what I do.
This is way more what you were not thinking, right?
This is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have unfettered access. And I really hope that relationship continues. I have a meeting next week. I've had 3 meetings with one of the landowners. I have another meeting, and we're working out the details. And there are some lovely places if you don't want to rough it. There are some lovely places nearby to stay. Belize is apparently, I've now heard this from different people multiple times, that apparently it is the best place I'm personally not going for this, but for those that don't know, I have found out that other than the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, there is of all the places on Earth, apparently Belize has the best scuba diving, or the snorkeling.
Nice.
So if you're into snorkeling, apparently Belize is just unbelievable. So
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So are you interested in coming now?
We'll talk. I just don't do venomous snakes, I just
what's important is that you just watch where you step. It's funny because I've filmed with Rex from Leak Project, and we recently just did a short fun thing from Moab, and we were at the Upheaval Dome, which is a couple hours from there. But that has some weird anomalous activity, and I've been working on some other documentaries that's also taken up some time. So it's not like I haven't overloaded the schedule. But um, the reason I was bringing it up is because there was a couple people that have been visiting and doing work in Arizona, and they said, "Did you know of the 30 something varieties of rattlesnakes? Arizona is the only state to have every variety of rattlesnake."
Wow.
And I'm like, one more reason I don't want to live here. And I'm not saying that it's not very pleasant. I've been going to Tucson quite a bit. Jim Goodall, the SR-71 Blackbird world
Right.
expert, yeah, with 29 books. He and I do a show every Thursday on my channel on Not Aliens, and we just, it's fun when you have someone who's written so many books and so smart and so fun, and we've gotten to be pretty good friends. And he's come here to Minnesota, and his family's here, and we've gone there and stayed with him, and it's just very lovely wife and family, and it's been great over the last year. A lot of different changes. How about you? I mean, let me take over your show. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Our numbers are really going through the roof with the show, and that's where my focus is. I'm doing
Hey,
TikTok. I'm doing all that stuff, and yeah, it's just busy, busy, busy.
oh my gosh, you're on TikTok.
Doing TikTok
Are you doing dances and stuff?
sometimes.
All right.
get,
Thanks
get
for
those
listening,
numbers up
everyone.
no matter what it takes, right?
Hey, I think it's phenomenal. It's been fun. I think even from early on when you and I, how long have we been doing this
Couple
now?
years. Couple years
Can you
now.
can you believe it?
Almost 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I'm so happy that that everyone's still interested in growing. It sounds like people are telling friends to tell friends to listen to the show.
Yeah.
That sounds
It's
awesome.
it's just every month it's more and more and more. So it's nice. Really nice.
Well,
Nice to see.
I love having a regular schedule. It is very hard for me. So I really do appreciate you, doing some juggling for me to get on late. And then on top of it, I had a water with me and I didn't bring it in. And I'm like, okay, well, great. Now I'm coughing my way through a show late on top of everything else. This is great. So sorry about
Now with you being in Utah, I mean Utah's got some really cool stuff too that you can be looking into,
that.
right?
Yep. Yeah. So that's why I went down to Moab. And there are and a lot of people will recall that if you ever watch Ancient Aliens or there's a lot of other shows, there's a ton of very, very alien looking glyphs that are in different areas that are considered indigenous or really, really early um, petroglyphs. There's just also dinosaurs, mining. There's a lot of anomalies like the upheaval dome. Some people, there's an expert that considers it maybe interplanetary lightning, or maybe it was just a meteor. But either way, the upheaval dome is very, very fascinating. The alien glyphs are very odd, and there are just other indicators. Besides the Salt Lake, there are just a lot of geological anomalies that how many echoing geological are we looking at disasters from the Younger Dryas? Are we looking at just hundreds of millions of like this as well? This we're at the edge of the Great Swamp of the Jurassic period. What are we looking at here? And the state is filled with quite a bit of that, and it's quite fascinating. It's just really becoming a base of operation because if I'm in Belize or somewhere around the world, the reality is that there will be more and more field research. When the new version of It's Not Aliens comes out, and I know they're scalping it online. For those of you listening, you can go look up my book right now, and there's people out there for months that have been trying to sell it for 170 to 230, $300, and it's crazy. Um, don't do that. Wait for the color book and pay a lot less. Wait for the new one. But when that gets out, I'm doing there's immediate follow-ups and breakdowns because the book is really vast because it has to cover it's the overall skeleton of how is it that all these pieces that are factual about whether it's paranormal or remote viewing and the
Mhm.
consciousness side of our beings, how does that look against uh, our what we think is natural versus a biotechnical, safe moded, is a lot of what we consider nature actually biotechnology that is from a more connected society that used this ancient terra preta that connected to these megalithic buildings, that
Mhm.
connected to, biological, what we consider biological systems and or innate systems. And how does all of it, how do you explain that to everyone? Vibrational energy and consciousness. So there's a lot of different fields, and the what I originally set out, it's like, okay, well, we can talk about this all in one book, and that's really a hard thing to do. So there'll be some follow-ups and breakdowns. There's a documentary I've been working on also, especially for dovetailing in this exploration is the start. It's just the beginning of many more expeditions. I hope we can. For those of you out there, if you have a LiDAR drone, feel free to get a hold of me. We have a couple resources for that. I have Dennis Stone from America's Stonehenge.
Mhm.
Looks like I'm not going to talk about everyone who's coming, but I don't think
Sure.
Dennis is going to hate me saying this. But Dennis Stone is coming. There are some really great researchers that have committed to coming when the details are all nailed down. And we're going to put some shovels in the ground. We're hopefully going to find a pyramid that no one's ever found before. We're going to look for Terra Preta. We're going to look for basically everything that we need to do to get it going. We're going to do.
Cool, cool, cool. Now, for the people that haven't seen you before on the show, let's explain to everybody. You have a theory about how the pyramids were built. What is that
Yeah,
theory?
so I started. I have a lot of interests, but I have a historical remodeling for 25 years now in my background, and um, originally I was going to, very, deep interest in our origins, our history, the who, what, where, when, and why. Raised Catholic. There's a lot of reasons I'm into this physically and metaphysically, and into the history. But a couple days into my research, which turned into a 3.5-year book project, was me hearing about an archaeologist that was taking a man to go see where the character Brad Pitt played, Colonel Percy Fawcett, disappeared, and he found Terra Preta. This archaeologist said, "Yeah, we don't know what it is. Soil scientists have looked at it for 100 years. We don't know how to make it. It's all over the earth." Well, let's go to the last village before Colonel Percy Fawcett disappeared. I'm like, time out. There's an engineered soil. It filters heavy metals and does all the things we've just discussed. But then I believe it connects to the buildings, to these megalithic buildings that right away they're like, well, this is weird. These polygonal walls and constructions, they seem to all work with earthquakes. They seem to cancel them. And then they started making models and they started doing some testing. There's been some great European research on it. And it's clear that there was a society pre-Younger Dryas, maybe past the Younger Dryas, like during the last dynastic up to the what we call the biblical flood or the Younger Dryas.
Mhm.
And what people are interested prior to that, that there's a society that was able to measure energies and technologies and build things like pyramids to maybe work to keep lava flows or maybe volcanoes from erupting. Maybe they were able to not just create a technology that was using low base frequencies for energy and communication and a connected network through these different various soils.
Mhm.
It occurred to me that when you build a foundation of these megalithic structures, they would be made out of different, what we now call seismic metamaterials. So these could be crystallines, they could be artificial man-made giant, they could be nanostructures, they could be giant, they could be shaped like different, almost like those capsella or those like connect magnet toys a lot of people use now, kids
Mhm.
use to build buildings. So seismic metamaterials are used in modern skyscraper construction. They're used in San Francisco. They're used in Tokyo. They're used anywhere that there's earthquakes, because you don't want your skyscraper to become a giant danger noodle.
Mhm.
So they don't just build a solid foundation, they incorporate springs and pads. And for all these couple hundred years that we've been digging up Tutankhamun and going into Menkaure and the Great Pyramid, the three big pyramids. One of the things that of course, people are fascinated by, and I was too with Indiana Jones. It's like, I want to find the golden monkey, and I want to find the golden mummies and everything. And then it finally hit me that the one thing that no one really cares about is the actual foundations of the constructions.
Mhm.
And the foundations are not just directly under the outside walls, as in our buildings. I think a society that can move a 1,000 ton block, not just over a great distance, but up and down mountains, hundreds of tons, and can shape it to be no mortared, work with earthquakes and energies. This is a society that can move billions and billions of tons of sand or crush things and create seismic stabilities within locations. And I think over great distances. And so my core research is on finding locations where we have megalithic constructions that are clearly from not the Mayans, not the Aztecs, not the Egyptians, not the Greeks,
Mhm.
that go further back, and to look and see what are the layers, not just under the blocks themselves, which are clearly stable after thousands of years, despite no maintenance and many earthquakes and not functioning the way they were. But I have a feeling that, based on like my documentary Terra Core on YouTube, you can watch it on Not Aliens, Terra Core, the documentary. It's only 38 minutes, but it explains that if we, I think, do the core sampling,
Mhm.
we're going to have indicators that they were managing the layers of soil, the layers of sand, the layers of, we might find that the foundation is 20 feet thick or 30 feet thick, not a foot like in a modern construction, a foot and a half for a modern home. We could find that they maybe crushed a granite and brought it from the Great Lakes, or, just like they were moving stones from miles or hundreds of miles away,
Mhm.
they may have been layering and pounding and compacting, and not just doing it to make a building not move, but they might have been doing it with technologies that we would only know if we were mindful enough to consider the density of the foundations, the complexity of the material in it, and whether or not any of it's on top of it. I mean, the real home run is if any of it's man-made, and that's not very sexy compared to finding a mummy, is it?
No, 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 no. And the other question I have with this too is, if they were doing all this by hand, or however they were doing it, how long would it take them to build something like that?
Well, isn't that the fascinating question? I mean, there's all these theories about, the Chicago World Fair couldn't have been built in the time frame it was built. A lot of some of that all got connected to Tartaria. And I've worked in historical remodeling and looked at what guys have done, 160 years ago. And if you want to know how fast humans can work, just look how fast they took down the great redwoods and the sequoias.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
Look at how fast we deforested this country in 100 years.
Mhm.
It's incredible what humanity did to. Uh, and it's not. This is not a big thing about all you climate people. Sit down. I'm not. That's not where I'm going. But
Right.
I think when you're dealing with a society that's moving, 700, 800, 1,000 ton blocks, and again, it's not. I just don't think people understand the logistics of cutting something like that,
Mhm.
shaping it, and moving it is so beyond our capacity to understand,
Mhm.
that the equipment they must have been using, the sizes of it, I think their ability to build and do construction was incredible. And if anything says anything, I would say look at the Temple of Jupiter in Baalbek, Lebanon. Look at Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman as examples. And then I want everyone to think about more recently the Empire State Building in New York. I
Mhm.
got really fascinated with the history. Originally from Minnesota, and when I said historical remodeling, one of the buildings I used to work in was, if you ever see a picture of the Twin Cities of St. Paul, there's a number one. It's the first national bank building in downtown St. Paul, and it was built at the identical time of the Empire State Building, and both were competing for granite and marble from Minnesota, from Cold Spring, which is a very big, very famous uh, stone supplier. And so, right there in Minnesota, you have two skyscrapers going up. both wanting the same stone, which is an interesting side note for anyone who's into our American architecture and skyscrapers. But for those that don't know, they put up, and for those of you who have seen the Empire State Building, this would be a good time to Google it too, or internet search it if you're not supporting that platform. So they built a floor a month. They finished the Empire State Building in 13 months. For those of that don't know. Now, if you, can you, I mean, just get your head around, like my primitive brain immediately goes, tall, big building. That's impressive. No, ornate, detailed stonework, interior, like the First National Bank, African mahogany, cherubs everywhere, giant marble statues, incredible work. They finished it in 13 months. What could a society do that can move 1,000-ton blocks that they cut and shape and measure? I don't think we remotely have an idea how fast and how quickly they could build anything. It's right.
It boggles the mind. It's just
it really does. And you know what's so funny? I was just talking about this with Michael from Michael Roser. Okay, so Michael, who does Dark Hour Paranormal, he and I are the co-conspirators for this thing, and it's so what I think people might not want to hear, and that might be maybe they're not on the edge of their seats or their imagination's peaked. One of the things that I think is so kind of daunting a little bit is that although we have a lot of specific theories about how the foundations were built and constructed, I think one of the things that's really fascinating is that we're going to go on this expedition with these very set ideas, like, okay, urban planning, we can sort that out. Or perhaps maybe doing, fine. We're within 10 miles, by the way, this site is within 10 miles of one of the crystal skulls being found. And one of the real ones, and also crystal jaguars and a few other things. But I think we're going to end up with more questions. The more we figure out and peel back the layers of our superhuman abilities, like the things that Wim Hof taught me on Treasure Island in San Francisco. I was one of the first 100-something people that ever met him in America. And when the first time he ever came to teach. And I think that those superhuman abilities, as we connect them back to just not knowing our lineal history, knowing the technologies that are there, I think we all have our hunches. I think California Haunts Radio, the paranormal, there's just no way there's that there's not a connection between all faiths, all human consciousness. There has to be an underlying system that we were once all connected with and a part of, and it's broken. And I think what's going to be really frustrating for everyone, or hopefully more exciting and enrolling, is that we don't not only have all the answers, but I think we're going to end up with more questions than answers. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think institutions that have kind of blocked the truth and have really hindered research, classic institutions that have really tried to control a very archaic, primitive, very, very sad narrative. I think they should embrace that. If they can be the institution that comes up with more questions than answers, that would be a funner place to be at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when you talk about more questions and answers, what I wonder about is the tool, like you say, the tools and stuff that they use to pull these rocks around, those big stones around. I mean, why is there no evidence, or why hasn't the evidence been found of these machines? Because there has to be. I mean, they're huge.
So Flinders Petrie, one of the great Egyptologists, was finding core samples, and there's been Christopher Dunn, of course, who did Giza plant technology, and it's been so wonderful. I got to meet him, but there has been a very distinctive machining marks on core drills that are, I'm not saying the same machine, but identical spin speeds. And you can tell the spin speed based on how far the blade cuts and then cuts and pauses and then cuts. And it's been well established even by Flinders Petrie at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. He's finding these core samples all over Egypt. They've been abandoned. And here's the catch. Don't think dynastic Egyptians that, don't think Charlton Heston and Moses and the Bible and, like we're talking, there's a good possibility that a portion of Egypt was not part of the dynastic Egypt that we knew. It may have been part of an older society that just the areas that they were excavating may not have been areas that were used by the Egyptians that we think of that were using Egypt in the last 6,000 years or 8,000 years. We're talking the more advanced ones that weren't Egyptians at all, but they built the technologies and then later it gets adapted by, and there's a lot of indications of that. But these core samples are fascinating because they're found in Peru, they're found in South America, they're found in Egypt, and they show that. So for instance, one of the Petrie core samples, there was a really terrible BBC documentary. They tried to debunk it, and they used a lot of straw man arguments. I mean, it was embarrassing, and you can look into it. But Christopher Dunn also goes into detail in his book about this. But this one particular core sample that they studied showed that, I mean, we're talking like, from a distance, from what I'm looking at on camera, it's looking like 3-4 inches in diameter, but it's spun the core, whatever bit that they used. And mind you, here's the other thing. They're not just drilling cores in rocks for like a few inches. Sometimes these core drill outs are 10 feet long. So they're sticking something through stone blocks and rock, and they're creating piping or wireways through really long distances. And these core samples are different lengths and widths. The particular one that I'm discussing had a spin speed based on the marks on the outside of the core drill of over 15,000 times faster than anything we have today that could run a core. And they're found all over. They're in Peru. Brian Forster throws a lot of it up. It's pretty fascinating. You can look right down into you can see what was drilled out, and you can see the core itself, and you can see into the tunnels that they make. But they're all over, and it's not just core samples. There's cutting in ancient quarries that are, again, it's the width of the cut into the stone. We don't have anything that can cut stone that small based on revolution and based on what they're cutting. Again, it shows there's edging at the Cairo Museum. There's a lot of video of stuff like this. Again, Brian Forster can be credited for a lot of it, for the raw footage. Ben from Uncharted X, he's another great field documentarian that you see actual close-ups of where these saws stop spinning. And Yusuf Ayawan, that's definitely one for everyone. I've gotten to interview Mohammed Ibrahim. Yusuf and Mohammed used to work together. I don't know what the history is, but they both work with the Komet Institute. They both not only do tours, but are doing research and are in Egypt. They are Egyptian and they are multi-generational, and they know ancient Egyptian, and they're both fascinating people. But you can see the revolutions on some of these lids, sarcophagi, or what we're now finally calling large boxes. And they're all showing signs of, okay, not every box, for those listening closely, many of the more ancient boxes are very precision made, and they show signs of these cuts. And it's really fascinating.
The other thing I was thinking while you were saying that, when you talk about these holes and stuff, those water catchers, the water reservoirs that they've been finding, and they go deep down. They're going deep down into the rock side of the mountain.
Yeah, like why? How are they doing that? I it's been really wonderful over the last few years. I got to talk to Eric Von Daniken personally, and you know, we were talking about how the Nazca lines
Hmm.
that and I will say this about Ancient Aliens: the very first season, one of the first episodes, and for all you out there listening, this is worth going back and looking for. There was a farmer who has found like hundreds or thousands of plumbing pipes, but they're ancient and they're in the ground. And it's like, hey, anyone, there's plumbing in the ground. Who put plumbing in when we were just an agricultural society followed priorly by Olmecs, Toltecs, and a bunch of, like nobody, right? And
Hmm.
so at Nazca in Peru, there are also plumbing pipes and drains. Now, Nazca is literally drier than the Antarctic and the North Pole.
Hmm.
Nazca is so dry. The origin for It's Not Aliens, originally I was going to use the Paracas mummies because they were backed up to the Younger Dryas. There was elongated skull, naturally born, weird cranial deformed, not by tribes, but it seemed like there were these mysterious people being mummified by the dry environments and lasting into the 12,000s. Like they're like 9.5 to they're showing mummies that are really backing up against what may have been the Younger Dryas, and so you don't get a lot of rain, which means that if you want to create Earth circuits, so the big, forget the monkeys and the spirals and the circles and the spiders and whatever they've stuck on Nazca, but the lowest layer of Nazca are these really long lines. Some don't deviate. They don't deviate an inch, and they go on for 25 kilometers, 18 kilometers, 11 kilometers, 6 kilometers. There's no reason that they would exist if they weren't part of an Earth circuit, an Earth grid system, that they were maybe some sort of like built-in biotechnological antenna. I mean, there's a lot of research that should be done about that. But here I am with Eric Von Daniken, and he's like, look, there are drains. Who and the drains, from what we can tell, they're piping that run all the way up into the Andes for more water. Who put in a plumbing system into the mountains to the Nazca lines? And also, in case it rains, there's a drainage system. Who did that? And it's
Right.
never talked about, ever. And some of it you could say, well, it's not that complicated. It looks like it's terracotta. The episode I'm telling you about in the first season of not Ancient Aliens. There,
Hmm.
it appears to be, you know, pretty nice, pretty nice plumbing, but maybe they use terracotta for a reason. I mean, maybe um, I don't know. Was it the hairpin from India? That they were dynastically side by side. For everyone that doesn't know, the last 6,000 years, the Egyptians were paralleling a society that, again, because we're in the West, we never talk about the East, but there was a
Hmm.
much, much larger, organized, plumbed, north by north, south by south, street building, metropolis building society called the hairpin, and they were much, much more successful sooner and there prior to the Egyptians. And that's just dynastic cultures, but I digress. Sorry. I'm on a roll.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just wondering, as you talk about this, what Eric thought of all this, because I mean, his beliefs versus your beliefs. Is there a happy medium there?
Yeah, I think that as far as pointing out the anomalies, and
Mhm.
it's frustrating because there's so many different, like, what to study first, like how do you pick it? Because I
Mhm.
think I think you and we're all concerned about our personal health. It's like it's
Right.
not about like some people will mock you and say, or they'll begrudge the idea of like, well, why are you eating healthier, or why are you so concerned? You're going to live what 2 years old longer than me, and you're going to miss out on cupcakes. And I'm like, well, my short answer back is, well, I would like for me to not have my butt wiped in a nursing home for 15 years until I die and be a vegetable. And then they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. You know, but then there's another side to it, which is, what if what it feels like to be present, to be alive, it's not just an esoteric ayahuasca, DMT trip? What if it's not banging on that blinky board? What if the Wim Hof superhuman, the breathing techniques, the cold therapies, the right food with the right nutrients grown in the right kind of advanced engineered soil, or the harmonics, the energies? What if the intensity and the just the sensation of living isn't in the extremes of being a adrenaline junkie or a drug addict? What if everything about really truly consciously living life is mixed in with these biotech, ancient lost biotechnologies? And between what we learn and self experimentation, what if I could tell you each of us could live not a 10 to 15% conscious life, but a 20 or 30 or 40% conscious life? And what would that do to your emotional and physical experience of everything from, I'll just say it, everything from sex to how you experience going on a roller coaster, to what you read and what entertains you, and what you can conceptualize in your future, in your own dreams and motivations. I think that would be it would behoove us. Now, if ultimately cellular regeneration, if these large boxes and and these indications in the Serapeum and the around the world, there's these large hyperbolic uh, boxes that seem to be, I mean, they just don't seem like they're for storage or for burials. I mean, there may have been a society that was retuning their own genes and their cells, and maybe death wasn't what it looked like, or that whole, we have a lot of holes we could go down here, right? If that doesn't get people thinking, so don't feel bad about your diet. It's not about a diet. It's about conscious living and enjoying every moment of your life, your friends, your partner, your kids. There's so much more that we might be able to bring to each other, and then through a collective human consciousness that isn't only in a dream state or in the realm of the paranormal. I mean, what could we do with a collective conscious humanity?
Absolutely. Wow. See, yeah, every time you're on, my mind goes, you know, I'll be thinking about this for days now. Now, as you
Everyone
talk,
listen twice.
as you talk about digging down now, and that's true. Every society always builds on top of the previous society. It doesn't matter. These old
Yep.
towns, they're all built on top of everything else. I mean, how exciting can it be to dig down and find something beneath something that's already there?
Yeah, and I think I think it's super exciting. It is, but then there's the people, or there's the cultures. The problem is, you don't even have to dig deep. The Bay of Amphora jars, I talk about this, and It's Not Aliens, and
Hmm.
it's a whole bay of amphora jars from Rome, and the Portuguese Navy of Brazil. Not only are there no digging permits, they, in quotes, for safety or for secure, or for, I don't know, they put more sand and buried it further. But it's pretty clear that there was not a blown off Roman ship, but there was clear travel and trade between the Roman Empire and the Brazilian area. Uh, and that is not how the narrative goes. The narrative is the Portuguese found Brazil.
Hmm.
So that's a more, and I'm listing that with 2,500 years as a contemporary example. Now, what happens when you have indigenous cultures that believe, oh, well, they were the first people there? Well, as you dig, and as we look at the Hindu Vedas and the oldest current histories we have show that we've been here for millions of years, maybe, and there's a paleoanthropological record that says that too, and it's noted in um, Michael Cremo's Forbidden Archaeology. I mean, it's
Hmm.
really well documented. These are actual paleoanthropological finds that show, anatomically correct humans very much predating what we know of our history or the timelines we've been given. So now what? What happens when you have an indigenous culture where literally everything they look at, and again, let's respect every human being, but
Hmm.
not everything is sacred. So the issue is, what do we do if it's not sacred? Then it's just old, and it's part of a society that no longer exists. But then what happens with the millions of human beings that lived under that layer? Like in Texas, the Galt archaeological site, there's this group that we call the Clovis, which are supposed to be related to the people who came across the land bridge. And everyone in America and all of South America came from a land bridge, which is a joke. And no one believes that anymore. It's just silly. And at the same time, the Galt archaeological site, which is one of the most famous sites outside of America, and I was doing research there uh, over the summer, and it's part of a greater survivor culture documentary that I've been working on. And the problem with the Galt archaeological site is that you have this layer of current, settlers, how the West was won, that all that romantic period, and then you have this indigenous layer of what we think of as native Indians that we know of. Then we have this Clovis layer, which is supposed to back up to when there was a Bering Strait land bridge. Now, here's the problem at Galt. It literally has an abandonment layer that goes down many feet. And what a lot of people don't know is that Galt has a stone floor from a society that dates to now at least 22,000 years ago.
Wow.
Now, I'm just pointing this out. More food for thought is I think it's very important that we respect every lineage of human being. But I'm sorry, not everything is sacred. Not everything is yours. And there are many sacred or special things that are under your special and sacred things. So, for the sake of, until we know who we are, how to cure a lot more diseases and conflicts of the human groups we have on this planet, I think it behooves us and it benefits us all to dig, question, and find every layer of every human being that we can to patch this story in. So there's my sidebar on being respectful to any layer of society, but that we also should have an inner inherent desire, drive to truly discover what are we doing on this giant ball.
So how are you making plans essentially to go out to Belize, and are you drawing up some kind of map of the area to make sure that you cover everything you want to cover, or how's that working?
Yes, lots of hours already on topographical maps, glacial maps, uh, recent histories, research papers, meetings with the landowners. There's another one next week, and so then there's a lot of prep that's going into how we get down there, how we safely conduct everything, where are the hospitals, what about doctors? Is anyone coming that could do triage? Not that we're expecting any issues. Who are the bushwhackers? We have bushwhackers that are going to be clearing paths, and how much of that is getting done before we get down there, and where are we staying, and are we camping, and how are we doing are we doing Starlink? Are we doing a local communication? What equipment are we bringing? What's rechargeable? What's solar? Who's cooking our meals? Who's going to be there for water and on-site? Like, how do we drive the conditions of the site for the most optimal initial visit? And then who's droning? Who's filming? Who's lidaring? How are we doing this efficiently and still meeting for dinner and maybe having a cigar and some scotch?
How long are you going to be there?
So the initial visit's looking to be 2 weeks. And
That's a lot in 2 weeks.
Well, you could do right. So and then if the group comes, and I was waiting to have this conversation again with them, but the group that is going to do the offshore maritime research,
right?
We could have divers, in the water, maybe seeing ruins that are either unrelated or a bit like Bimini, or maybe just dynastic. Maybe there's just a pyramid that no one noticed, and so we want to fill in some of the gaps of this culture that we know of as the Mayans. We want to know more about them. We also want to know, what did they find? Where were they that they built literally a massive continent? They built a continental empire. And I'm not saying it didn't expand into the ocean and into other islands and a global one, but it's pretty clear that when the Guatemalan LiDAR scans came out, and for those that haven't seen it, there's a 5,000, it's a rectangle, but it's 5,000 square miles that they've decided to LiDAR for ancient ruins. Well, it's very funny that it mum's the word in the last couple of years, because what they found already, just from doing 800 square miles of that, made international news. They found 60,000 buildings, including hundreds of pyramids, not tiny ones. They found hundreds of pyramids that no one knew about, tens of thousands of buildings, super highways. And that was something known to even the earliest explorers that were here at the end of the 1400s into the 1500s. They conquistadors got lost at one point, this initial group, and they came literally upon a road, and they said, this road rivals anything we've ever seen in Rome, of the great Roman roads. And they said it was bigger, wider, and it was so straight, it just went off, and they looked left, they looked right. Imagine that. You're lost in the jungle. You end up on a interstate freeway that's so wide. They said it was incredibly wide. I mean, it was enough for like 8 lanes, for whatever they considered 8 lanes. And they looked left, they looked front, they looked back, and they couldn't see the end or a turn in the road. And
Wow.
that was just one, and that was, that was in our time frame. So if you can find 60,000 ruins in 800 square miles, and in 2017 there was an archaeologist that I quote that said, Western academics have considered South and Central America a place where cultures go to die. We need to start considering that it may have been the birthplace of cultures and societies, and that we could easily estimate 15 to 20 million people. Now, that's just off the Guatemalan LiDAR scans, right?
Mhm.
So when you look at what's really the whole area, at one point, was it hundreds of millions of people? Was that just dynastically? Was that, did the group that ultimately becomes the Mayans, did they just like franchise? Did they just keep building what they knew, that their techniques for quarrying? There's a quarry that's actually near the place that we're working. But did they just, template one pyramid and one cityscape after another, and then did it just expand into this
Mhm.
multi-continental environment? And we have indicators, like in Hueyatlaco, Mexico, just for another side note for people for
Mhm.
antiquity. In the 60s, they found a site at Hueyatlaco that was human. It was a human site, and Virginia Steen McIntyre loses her entire career out of this, because her and the other geologists, like laser guided precision, fact based, not opinion making, romanticizing anthropologists, but actual geologists, looked at the site and said, this site is at least 245,000 years old. It could be older. And now recent estimates put it between 350 and 550,000 years old. So I just want that story, that little side note, to be in
Mhm.
your mind's eye, along with the Galt archaeological site with a floor in it 22 feet deep, below thousands of years of abandonment of the Clovis, which, mind you, Galt is the largest Clovis site in North America. It also has it's one of 19 mastodon kill sites where humans, for sure, killed a young female mastodon, and the skull was there, tools were there. That was a first. I mean, Galt is a very large site, and that's just one site. But Hueyatlaco, now being maybe 350, 330 to 500 plus thousand years old,
Mhm.
who was here? Who built those giant megalithic constructions? Were these the same people? Were these pre-people? Were they also survivors? Were they primitive humans that were left on their own, like we have tribes today?
Mhm.
And this Mayan world expands quickly because I think they kept finding ruins from a more advanced society. I think the terra preta, the ancient engineered soil, and the only way we're going to know this is we want to acknowledge dynastic people. We want to try to tell their story, but we really want to look at how did they land in each of these places? How did they pick up the pieces of this abandoned, lost world of the gods, that when the conquistadors asked the Aztecs who built this place, and they're like, the gods built it. The gods were long gone. The gods built it and they're gone. So um, we want to tell those stories, but we need to get to who the gods were. We need to demask that and start, again, personal experimentation. Let's do the things we got to do to each do the gene expression and the meditation and the work personally to become and be connected again to what is likely a global, um, connected human network. I think that could be exciting, if not for all the nightmares people can imagine.
Absolutely. Jared, it's always fun to have you on. And this
Well, thanks
update
for
is
having me.
tremendous. This is fantastic.
Yeah, so when you wrap up, I really appreciate you having me on, but you should you know, should I wait in the back room,
If
or
you
you got
want, yeah,
another guest?
you can do that. You can wait. We can chat
Well,
off
thanks
screen.
everybody.
You guys can all be jealous because we're going to chat off screen. Nah, 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 nah. Okay.
Well, it was really wonderful. Well, I'll just wait for you. So
Okay.
thanks everyone.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you,
All right.
Jared. Okay.
Yep.
Bye. Where'd it go? It's always fun to have. Oh, wrong button. Look at that. Okay, I got it. It's always it's how it's been. Everything I touch on the computer dies. Dies. Anyway, it's always fun to have him on, and yeah, always an education. Always. Anyway, tomorrow I will see you guys at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, back on our usual time, and gonna do kind of a different kind of show tomorrow. I'm not gonna tell you what, so you guys have to tune in to find out. Okay. Anyway, I want to thank you all for coming, and if you like what you heard, please share it with 5 people. If you hated what you heard, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here, so just the usual spiel. And also, if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you saw, please click that like button. And if you haven't done so already, follow me on the California Haunts. What is it? The California Haunts Ghostly Events page. It's like one of the days, and my own personal page as well. And follow me over at YouTube if you haven't done that yet. Subscribe over to the YouTube page if you're watching from YouTube. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and have a good evening. And 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Let me get this thing queued up. Here we go. Boom.